initiative. We'll talk about the capacity building funding opportunity that we have released, including things like eligibility, time requirements, how to apply, who to contact for help. And then we will open it up for questions. So I will start by introducing some of the folks we have here with me on the call today. So Kayla Kuboyama is also with Hawaii Community Foundation, and she will be assisting me in running this grant program. We have with us Luna Kekoa from the Division of Aquatic Resources. And we have Nigel from KUA, who is going to be our partner on implementing the training program. So I think from here, I turn it over to Luna.
Mahalo, Dana. And so, yeah, we really appreciate having Hawaii Community Foundation as a partner. We, at the Division of Aquatic Resources, work with communities. And a lot of the time, communities are volunteering their time, trying to figure out how do they build capacity. And we don't really have the funding to co-core them. And so this has been something that, it's always been on our mind, like, how do we make sure that when we work with communities that they have the capacity? And, we turn to organizations like KUA who have some of that capacity, and they kind of provide physical bodies over there to help train like Nigel. But there is like the little in between. So like, we really appreciate this opportunity to make sure communities have some funds to use how they need the help, right? Like DAR is just like, hey, we may be able to help like this, right? So we appreciate this opportunity. As far as what DAR is trying to do, right? So in 2016, Governor Ige made a proclamation that by 2030, we're going to be effectively managing 30% of our nearshore marine environment. The DLNR, Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Aquatic Resources, has taken a lead on this initiative. And the way we're viewing it as effectively managed is by establishing these marine management areas, right? And so there are ways that we can look at our nearshore areas and figure out what are the issues and concerns of those areas, listening to the people of those islands. So Maui, we're starting with, and trying to figure out how can we create a 30% network of these marine managed areas, right? And so I'm just going to stop right there, because a lot of people hear that and say, ooh, they're closing off our area to fishing. That's not it at all. If you look at Kaikili Herbivore Management Area, you're still allowed to go and poke fish, throw a pole over there, dive for he'e, right? It's just a certain type of fish that you're not allowed to catch. And so we're looking to these type of management areas where, harvest is still allowable. In Hawaii, like part of our culture is fishing, right? We grew up fishing and diving. And so making sure that we can still put food on the table is one of the important things with Holomua. But balancing that with, fish have a role in the ocean, and making sure that we have a balance of, okay, we can go and catch some fish, but got to have fish out there for do their role, right? And so that's the balance that we're trying to find. We're looking to do this island by island, and we're actually starting with Maui. Maui is a great site. There's a lot of community support. There's already management areas created. You guys have a really solid DAR team on island. If you look at the Kahului Harbor, they went back and kind of revised those rules. And so we're looking to Maui as to pilot this project, right? So we got a great DAR team. We got communities who are interested, all of you folks showing up, right? And we figure out what this 30% network looks like, right? We're planning on coming and having talk stories on Maui for people to just come and kind of share like what they've been seeing, what they've been hearing, who are people in the community that would be great to sit on this advisory, this navigation team to kind of help guide this process along, right? And so along the way, you communities are going to need some help. And so that's what this funding is for, to get, a venue, have money to like rent a venue if need, to grab some poo so that people come, it's always a good incentive, get some nice food to eat. But then to also have capacity. So like working with KUA of like trainings. And so this really is that opportunity to build community capacity to work through this government process. So again, appreciate your time, and we'll be open to questions after it's Pau. Mahalo nui.
Aloha, everyone. So in partnership with DAR, Hawaii Community Foundation is launching this Marine 30 by 30 capacity building grant. And as Luna was saying, it is twofold. So one is that funding for up to $50,000 for 2 years, so $100,000 total. And then in addition to that, to be able to upskill community organizations, we also have this cohort training model that KUA will be facilitating. And that's going to be covering these kinds of topics like civic engagement, community leadership building, strengthening community voice and collaboration, GIS, and then financial and grant management. In terms of eligibility, we're looking for nonprofit organizations or community organizations with marine use or activity focus. They need to be based on Maui or Lanai, and they need to not have any outstanding reports due to Hawaii Community Foundation. And again, we are wanting to do kind of an emphasis on these smaller community organizations who wouldn't have capacity otherwise to be engaging with partnership with DAR. So even if you do not have a 501c3 now, we're going to talk a little bit later in the presentation about how you can plug into this work. And in terms of time requirements, we want to make sure that we're not making you have like less capacity to do your work at the same time that we're trying to build up capacity. So what you guys will need will be up to 2 staff who can commit to attending training sessions for 2 years. And the reason for that is that we want some sort of stability and continuity. So if a different person from your organization is going to every training, there's not going to be that sort of oneness of the cohort, first of all, and then also everyone's going to be sort of on different pages in terms of what they need to be trained in. So there's that. And then in year 1, there is a 1-2-day gathering on Maui, and then 2 virtual trainings. And then in year 2, that's going to be a 1-2-day gathering on Maui, and then 4 virtual trainings. And then I'll pass it to Nigel to talk about KUA and dig a little bit deeper into what the cohort program is going to look like.
Sure. Thank you, Kayla, Dana, and Luna. My name is Nigel Rosette. I'm a planner with KUA. If you don't know about KUA, we've been in existence for over 18 years, but bring that experience in network building and collaboration and community organizing to this cohort model, I guess. We try to use a culturally rooted approach and really a lot of listening, to be honest, listening to the needs of what you folks need and building on what we have access to and connecting with people who have that expertise, right? So really our function is to connect folks and build that pilina, or that connection between you all, just to feel comfortable and to feel that you're not alone in the work. A lot of you folks might be in different places in terms of it could be a first grant, could be the 10th grant that you folks got, but really trying to leverage the knowledge within the cohort to really learn from each other. And so like Kayla was saying, we're gonna do that at least twice a year in person, which we're excited about. Because of COVID, the past 2 years has been hard, but the beautiful thing about this being a Maui cohort is we can be in person a lot more, right? So we're looking forward to doing these gatherings and doing some interim virtual gatherings just to keep touches with each other. And some of those topics might look like capacity building. It might look like logic model development, kind of like telling your story, right? And how do we support the work that you're doing? It also might look like monitoring support, or organizing community meetings, facilitation, or figuring out how to engage the right policy folks, right? So a lot of listening on our side and holding the space really for cohort members to come together, yeah, trying to find ways to connect with each other and learn from each other. And so I'll leave it there and pass it back to Dana or Kayla.
Yeah.
Mahalo.
So thank you, Nigel. As far as the timeline for the grant program, it is currently open. It is going to be closing on September 15th at 4 p.m. We will be notifying awardees and making first payments in December of 2022 and anticipating that cohort start date after the holidays, so in January of next year. Progress reports will be due in December 2023, and then upon us receiving that progress report, we'll make that second payment in January of 2024. And how to apply. Earlier this year, Hawaii Community Foundation transitioned to a new application platform called Smart Simple. So you'll access the application through this website. The application includes 6 short essay questions, as well as some general characteristic questions about your organization or community group. We do require a budget, and if you don't have one currently made, we do offer a template that you can use to build off of. And then we will require a 501c3 document to be uploaded if you are an organization with that. If you are not, what you're going to be needing is to find a fiscal sponsor, and they're going to be someone who you work with, and they'll sort of help with that administering. They're sort of, in a sense, lending you their 501c3 designation. And if you will be needing that, you're going to require some additional paperwork. And again, that deadline is September 15th at 4 p.m. And for fiscal sponsors, we have 2 organizations that have stepped up, Lokahi Pacific and Living Pono Project, both on Maui, who are interested in any organization or community group that does need a fiscal sponsor. We recommend reaching out as soon as possible and getting into contact with them. They are, you know, sort of awaiting people to get in touch with them to get started on this. Yeah, we are also hoping to find some more fiscal sponsors. Sorry, there's a motorcycle right behind me. Looking for more fiscal sponsors. So if you are an organization who is sort of just learning about this opportunity and not necessarily going to apply, but you wanted to serve as a fiscal sponsor, definitely reach out to Hawaii Community Foundation so that we can get your information out as well. And that is it for our formal presentation. We have some contact information up here if you have any questions about the funding opportunity or need technical support. But if during this call right now you want to, you know, talk story a little bit or have some questions about the program, now's your time, and we open up the floor to you. But thank you for coming with us.
Thank you so much, Kayla, Luna, and Nigel. So, you know, we're a small group, so we can keep it kind of informal. I think if folks have questions, you can either type it in the chat and we'll refer to that. Or if you just want to come off mute and ask your question, we can do it that way also. So whatever you're more comfortable with. For our more extroverted folks on the call, we're okay with the thoughtful silence as people think of their questions. So okay, starting to get questions. Any budget requirements? Other than making sure you have one and you're able to, you know, tell us clearly what, you know, what you intend to use the funding for. And, you know, like Kayla said, there's a template on there if you need to use the template to help fill out the information. But otherwise, no, there's no match requirement for this or anything like that.
Can I
Scott,
just ask?
Oh, yeah,
question?
sorry. Go ahead. I saw you come off mute. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, I have 2 questions, but as far as the budget, that basically, I mean, I already submitted 2 applications for this that have been rolled over now, but maybe we'll be helping to submit a 3rd as well. And I noticed that the organizational budget was required, but not like a specific program budget. So as far as how the organization chooses to spend the money, that's pretty much up to the discretion of the organization, what best supports participation in this program. So that could be salaries for the people who are participating, but it could be for other aspects of our like marine program, if the participants are volunteers, or so just clarifying that it's really
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so the intent is that the budget is to support your marine focus work and, you know, in furthering of your program. But it doesn't have to be for a specific project. We're not trying to fund a specific project. We are trying to fund just the general capacity of your organization and your organization's ability to do this community-based marine work in partnership, you know, through this program, in partnership with DLNR as they also work on the 30 by 30. So yeah, it is open in that way.
Okay, great. And then my second question was regarding the designation and sort of marine management area aspect of it. And I think we've talked a little bit maybe with Luna and Nigel about this already, but with some of the communities that, you know, we're working with, they're not, well, two things. They're managing their shoreline areas, but not necessarily through a formal designation. So for example, in Mo'olea, we're doing the OPE rest area, but it's all voluntary. So to me, that should count towards effective management and the 30 by 30 goal, but it's not an official like rule making process. And then our, you know, organizations in each Maui want to participate in the larger regional effort that we have going on, that could potentially lead toward rulemaking on a larger scale, but not necessarily like specifically in those areas that we're managing. So I just wanted to make sure that those are still sort of fit within the parameters of what you're trying to support in this goal, even if we're not going towards actual designation or rulemaking within the areas that we manage.
Yeah, I will start and then I'll turn it over to Luna. So we understand that not all communities are on a track for, you know, actual designation, and that there's many different kind of management relationships and opportunities. From our perspective, we do want to ensure that you are working on some sort of co-management with DAR. That is our only requirement. We know it's a long process. There's a lot that goes into it, and different communities will land in different kind of management relationships with DAR over time, and we don't want to get involved in trying to dictate what that looks like, and we don't want to be too strict on, you know, you have to be this or you have to be that. Our requirement is just that it is nearshore marine management and you're willing to do it in cooperation, collaboration with DAR. Luna, feel free to jump in also.
Perfect. So one thing with Holomua is that this aspect of 30% is only one of the 4 pillars we have, right? So that falls into the place-based planning pillar. We also have a Pono practices pillar, a monitoring pillar, and a restoration and protection and restoration pillar, right? So in the monitoring, like the OPE rest area could fall into that monitoring area, right? Where it's in rest area, and now we can go and monitor to see like what is voluntary compliance look like there. So maybe it's not a designated marine management area, but it still fits to Holomua because we're effectively managing by understanding what the resources is happening there and what's the use of it, right? So it's giving us a look at that nearshore. Everybody's like, oh, 30%, what about the other 70%? So that's why we have Pono practices, right? The herbivore initiative that we were taking through and scoping, that looks at statewide, right? So it's filling in those pukas in between that 30%, right? So we're covering the basis with like, here's what makes sense at a statewide level, but not everything makes sense. Some of it makes sense at like an island level, and some of it makes sense at a community level. And that's why we're taking like these different approaches, and you can fit to Holomua where, like I said, like an OPE rest area could fit into monitoring, you can fit into protection and restoration, but it just not going to count towards that 30%. but you're part of Holomoa because it's filling the other 70. So we can say 30% place-based, but 70% statewide. That would fall into the 70% statewide.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Luna. Thank you, Scott. Kevin.
So I'm trying to say quickly, I think I have these blue Avenger Marine Navy airplane jet fighter guys flying over my house right now. Super loud. I'm glad to hear that the Opihi restoration area, that kind of activity qualifies. Luna, how does fish ponds fit in at all to this program and the 30 by 30, and whether or not like it's private or state-owned fish ponds, etc.? How do those fit into this, if at all?
So that's definitely one area that we're still trying to figure out. Like I said, like it may not fit to the 30% place base, but it can fit into monitoring. It can fit into the protection and restoration pillars. It can fit into the education and outreach about what the fish ponds do for the area. So it still fits to Holomoa, but again, may not count towards that 30%. But we're not looking to just build 30%. We're looking to engage with the communities on the near shore. So if there are communities, like I said, like that are fish ponds and how do we fit to Holomoa? Like how can we effectively manage our area? Like what are the tips? What is outreach that we can use? What is some monitoring that, like if we get fish counts that are coming out of the fish pond, like how does that contribute to Holomoa? So it's really just having these discussions with these communities who are there. It's our first crack at this, so we don't know exactly what we're walking into, but we have an idea of like how we want to try and roll it out. And the first thing is to go and talk story, be like, here's what we're thinking. This isn't our island, but we checked with our DAR staff. We've been filling things out with community, and here's what we think would work. And then we go and listen. And if people tell us, yeah, that might work, but you got to fix this, or maybe check with them, or you know what, that might not work. Here's another idea, or you know what, why are you doing this? Like you guys already have a system. So it's just to kind of listen and feel things out. And then see if we can make it work.
Thank you, Luna. Shay, I think I saw you. Yeah, there you go.
So coming off of what Kevin said, we have a fish pond here, yeah, Kahonomomona. And I guess maybe like inputting or seeing the native species come back, because we monitor what's in our ponds every time. And we saw that recently Hulu Hulu Vaina has come back and slowly is spreading. So would that like monitoring those types of things count too?
Yeah, again, go ahead, Luna.
Yep. So we are working with a community-based monitoring hui, and actually one of the species that we're looking at is limu. So limu and opihi are the two that we're trying to figure out, like what is communities doing with monitoring with these two species, and how can we start to utilize what they're collecting and like the observations that they're seeing to be like, should we make a management decision on this? Is it necessary? We have different communities who they have regulations for limu, and they're like, you know what, like we shouldn't even have that, like that's too much, we need to take less. And so they're monitoring to see that. So limu is one of the species that we're looking at to see like how are communities monitoring, what are they comfortable sharing with the state, knowing that it's got to be public, and if they do share, how can we like keep that sensitive data not hidden but like protected, you know, so that they don't know, oh, this is where all the hulu hulu vina is. Just like, oh no, there's limu out there, look, there's abundant, and these are native and these are invasive. We can do it at that level so that they see like, oh, the invasives is going down, the natives is growing, right? That's the picture we want to paint. We don't have to give them what species is there. We just got to say like, here's what's happening. So it really is a balance, and it's our first time diving in. So like I said, this is like what we're thinking. But when you like start actually walking the plant, that's when you figure out all the pukas, and you got to go patch and sand and fiberglass them again. But that's what we're thinking of.
And I'll just add from the Hawaii Community Foundation perspective, yeah, we did include like limu groups, right, as part of eligible groups that could apply. So from our perspective, that does count. Any other questions from the group? Okay, well, this will not be your only opportunity to ask questions. Kayla has on the screen, there's my email address, so you can always email me if you think of something later. And we are also, as Kayla mentioned early on, we are going to try to be out on Maui to also do another info session in person. So you should be seeing email information come out about that also. So you can always join us there and ask more questions. So feel free to reach out if you think of something else later. In the meantime, thank you all for your interest in this and coming with your questions. We look forward to seeing your applications come through, and everyone enjoy the rest of your lunch break and rest of your week. Aloha.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.